So we're going to talk about how you relate to a successful transition starting very early on when an individual is in primary grades all the way through high school. So if you think of the goal of a successful transition, it's for individuals to live, work, play, and become educated in the community with a quality of life. Really, isn't that what we want for everybody? And that's what I'm all about, is what I always look towards is what is everybody else doing and how do we achieve that for everyone. And what I'd like to do is, thinking of our last presentation, is I want to dedicate this quality life part to Mina, because I think that story was really great to me, and all the work and dedication and the quality while she was here with us, and also the partnerships that need to take place to make that happen, as Michael shared with us, is we're going to be talking about partnerships as well. Okay, so I have some basic assumptions around a transition, and here are my beliefs. Is people with disabilities have many choices and possibilities in life. Even though I shared with you some bad statistics yesterday, I believe that we're striving for that. And as I mentioned yesterday, this is what I write about. So I'm meeting people every week that are making things happen in spite of the horrible things that we have in our world today. The next one is people with disabilities can lead independent lives and have the opportunity to make choices and life decisions. Here's my belief also. We strive for independence, but nobody in our world is truly independent. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because when I had my first car, the engine went out. And I had to make a decision whether I would change the engine, get a new engine, or get a new car. Okay? So how many people in here can change a car engine? Okay. Yeah, there's several. You just became desired by everybody in the room by raising your hand. But I can't do that, so I would need some support to be able to do that. So we need support somewhere in our lives. So independence is kind of an interesting thing, but I think we always strive for an individual to be as independent as possible. So Walter, if he can pull his arm out of his coat and he can partially participate in taking off his coat, that's fantastic, as we want him to always be doing that, use it or lose it, okay? So the next one is transition is a team process between a student, family, school, and community agencies. The next one is significant future and life planning needs to take place as early as possible, but remember I said it's never too early, it's never too late. So I'm always a believer, in spite of where we begin with somebody. More outcomes that are neighborhood, community, integrated, related are needed for individuals upon graduation. So this is the next one, and this is a big, bold statement, but I'm truly a believer. All persons with disabilities are employable. ALL, capital letters, and I want to tell you why. It's a student that I have named Roy. And Roy was one of the students when I first started teaching, so I actually was, at the time, I was 22 and some of my students were 21. So when I was with them in the halls, I get asked for a hall pass, you know, and things like that. And so I said, I'm a teacher. But Roy was one of my students. 50% of my students were residents of the state institution that was centrally located in Wisconsin, because there was a famous professor there, Lou Brown, who secured federal monies proving that everybody can work, everybody can live in the community, things such as that. And he partnered with the school system there. And I was one of the teachers who was a vocational and transition teacher. So one of my students who was a resident at the state institution, his name is Roy, and he didn't come to school the first semester because they said he was too medically fragile to come to school. So then I get his file the second semester, and Roy's coming back. And so he had to be transported to school on a side lyre. So he couldn't sit up in his wheelchair and had to be on his side, so it was specialized transportation. And actually what his record said, you know how I don't like a lot of the records I read because I said they're about deficits and I'm all about abilities. And this was really an interesting one because it said all Roy has is brainstem functioning. Okay, so, but all means all, right? All means all. So what I decided to do is I set the file aside because it didn't help me, as I'd mentioned to you in other cases as well, and I decided I would start observing Roy. So one of the things I noticed right away whenever there was a loud noise or somebody tripped is that he would get this ear-to-ear grin. Okay, so something was going on there, and so I said, this guy likes drama, he likes noise. I have to find something that involves drama and noise, okay? So in my quest to kind of investigate this and try to communicate more with Roy, it was a step-by-step process. But one of the places as I was developing jobs I found was a state office building. And in that state office building, they had a copy center where the different departments in the state office building would have things copied for their particular work purposes. And so they had these really loud copy machines going on all the time. It was the days before they had electric staplers in the copy machines, and so you had to do that separately, and a lot of these departments wanted multiple copies. So that was extra noise too. So one of the things that we did that was interesting is we were looking at different ways people could use switches to control their environment, and we were also working with these interesting adaptations. So we were working with the university engineering department, and the students that I had as my learners is they actually became the projects for the engineering students in terms of the right adaptation to help them participate. Isn't that a cool partnership? Partnerships. And what I found in talking to the occupational therapist is she said, you know, Roy's main predictable movement is an eye blink, you know, and so it's kind of a reflex type of thing. So we were going to use an eye blink switch for him to turn something on or off. We were exploring that and trying different things out. And he seemed to like it a lot, which was good because we were trying to honor his communications in the whole process. So I talked to the guy who was the head of the copying center, and his name is Gordy. And Gordy, guess what? He has a brother who has cerebral palsy. Who has cerebral palsy as an attribute, and he totally got what we were trying to do. And so he said, yeah, bring him in, you know, let's try out the job here. So I'll never forget, we come there the first day and we're full of equipment, you know, talking about, you know, like the big bags of stuff and things like that. And you should have seen the people in there. You know, what's going on here? And things like that. And so what we did, and you know, Roy, since he lived in the institution, I got things like a clip-on tie and things like that, instant class, you know, and things like that. And so we were trying to really make a good impression, but people were really looking at us. And so with the eye blink switch, what it would do is there were 2-page collates, and the engineering student created something. If you turn it on, it brings the 2 pages together and shoves it into an electric stapler and makes a loud noise. And guess what? We had tried this out before, and every time that loud noise took place, Roy got an ear-to-ear grin. And so we were trying out, and he was just enjoying himself. And this woman came up to us after that day, and she said, you know what? I think he should be here. He likes his job a lot better than all of us. And so, okay. So that was a really good start, you know, and things like that. I want to say something, though, is Roy is one of my students that has passed away. And that's hard, you know, also for a teacher, you know, to have students. And it's bothered me for a lot of years and everything. But I really think he brings a legacy with him. I remember one time is that I went and visited him at the state institution. And as an adult, he had this bed, which was kind of like I would equate to a big crib. And I remember when I was leaving him, I had to push up these bars and to secure him in there, and I was walking out and I looked back and I saw him looking out of those bars, and to me they looked like prison bars. If you've ever seen the book by Burton Blatt, Christmas in Purgatory, is they have different photos of people in institutions, and they're horrifying types of things, and I'll never forget that. But you know what? Is people question, why would you put in all those energy and resources and supports and things like that for somebody who only has brainstem functioning? And I will tell you, I can tell you verbatim, I looked at that young man looking out of those bars, and I can tell you, Roy, at his job, with his clip-on tie, with his adaptation, with his full grin, had a quality of life there. And so, I don't draw lines. That's for maybe some higher power or something like that. Maybe not. We'll see that. But I have decided to not, say you can, you can't. Everybody can work. All means all. So the next one is intensive career planning needs to take place early on. That makes sense. And agencies need to be identified and involved in the planning process earlier on. Because of these things, I created a family guardian type of questionnaire that I believe the right time to give it and work with a family is when the student is in the primary grade. So they can start preparing for transitions and preparing for things that will make that smooth and helpful. And there's things we can be doing all along the way with somebody's educational career, no matter what year they're in. Duplicate assessment should be eliminated because we had some pretty good assessments that we used in school, on the job types of things, et cetera, and then, you get to a human service agency and they wanted to repeat that. No, what it does is it delays the process. We don't want that. Okay, this is from my session yesterday, the Just Give Him the Whale, and I believe this is where you start with everybody. I use this for transition planning, I use this for getting to know a student, I use this for behavior support planning, things such as that. And shouldn't somebody's life have their interests and their passions? So this is a very important thing, so important to me that I wrote 2 books about it. It seems obvious, yet we a lot of times ignore this area in person-centered planning, and it's such an important area. And actually with my stepson Dan, it entirely changed his life. So I met Dan, who's my current stepson, when he was in high school. And Dan had a really rocky educational career. He was in and out of alternative schools. He'd been identified early on as having ADHD as an attribute and had been receiving medications. I have never received medications for my ADHD. My parents took me to specialists when I was young. I had it when ADD was just a math concept. And so what happened is there were specialists, they would say, yeah, there's a pill we could give him for this, or the other train of thought was get him involved in everything, and that's the path they chose. The Dan's path was a little different. He had some medication. So, and come to find out, when I got to know Dan, I felt he wasn't receiving the right supports, and I always believe trust your instincts. And so I took Dan to some people that I know to kind of sort this out and look at, have we done anything that's maybe a misdiagnosis or what? Actually, Dan doesn't have ADHD. He has bipolar types of support needs, and he was receiving a medication that contributes to his behavior. So what was happening after that is we are seeing kind of a different Dan, so we get a better support system. And for the first time in my life, I go to the school, to the IEP meeting in the role of parent. And they were scared of me. Yeah, and they shouldn't be scared of me. Am I that scary? I think they read my website or something, though, because the superintendent of the school system was there and different principals, so the big guns. And I said, oh, wow, I'm honored all you VIP people came. This is really great. And I said, really, I'm not scary as long as you do the right thing. Yeah, and so... And, it was a really good meeting. I think they prepared well, and there was good communications around it. And so we got to the area of social relationships, and Dan and I had talked a lot about this, and Dan started out talking about that area. And really what had happened with Dan is with the alternative schools he had been in, is there were a lot of friends that kind of came and went, and a number of them were involved in like the legal system and things like that, not necessarily the best models. And so the school was ready. They said, Dan, we have after-school clubs and activities. You can join some of those. And so they started reciting some of the different after-school clubs. So we have the debate club, the math club, the science club, the pep club, and things such as that. And Dan sat there and he said, no, 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 no. And so they said, Dan, what is it that you might be interested in? And he said, my passion is video games and computer games. I would like to start a gaming club at the high school. And this is a big thing for teenagers these days. And they raised their eyebrows a little bit, but the principal came in right away and he said, Dan, we will start a gaming club in the high school, but there will be no games of adult content or violence. So we took a genre that's like this and we brought it down to about here. And but Dan was so excited, he came in next day with 2 full pages of games that would qualify, like Mario Brothers and things you find on your phone. I cannot claim to be an expert. And they let Dan be the president of the gaming club because they were so impressed. And so all of a sudden, kids are knocking at the door of the house, and they're different. All the gamers are a little weird, but they seem like better friends to Dan. And so that was a good thing. And then comes like the next step with this transition is Dan is wanting to go to college, which is a great thing. But he has those very rugged transcripts over the years. So here's what Dan did, and this ingenuity was amazing. So he wrote on the essay, he wrote his story and about being misdiagnosed, and he said, things are going better right now. And he said, the best thing that's happened to me is the gaming club, and I'm the president, and I would like to start a gaming club at the university. And so we get this letter back, and it said, please send us your senior transcripts. And so they were looking better, they get sent, and Dan got an acceptance letter for the university. So that was a big celebration for the family. And guess what? They also let him start a gaming club. And it was part of the existing computer sciences club. He started a Facebook page, and within a week there were over 50 people. And he has a commons area every Saturday afternoon, and it is the most popular club at the university, and he's now seen as a leader. And he walks different. He acts different. And guess what he wants to do for his work that he's preparing for? He wants to be a teacher. Okay, so this is good. Now, here's what happens when we talk about transition with people. At some point, what systems may say, school systems, is they may say the curriculum is too complex and he's further apart from his peers in terms of understanding, and so we should probably cease the inclusion and start more of a life skills type of program. And what people are doing at that point is they're cutting the cord to that individual going on from grade to grade with that same group of people, which you only experience in that time of your lifetime when you go to school, is that's being kind of cut off at that point. And my belief is you can have inclusion and learn life skills if you support life skills learning at the time you need to learn it. Okay, so for example, do we need a money class? Or are there opportunities within the school that we can use money and practice it day to day at those times when you would use money, like lunch, if you want to use a vending machine, or buying something in the school? Sometimes there's stores or places you can buy school supplies and things like that. That way we don't have to take away inclusion and being with your peers, and we can also focus on the life skills. So that was a chapter in my book that I'm about to trip over this table people from disability to possibility, which I talked about yesterday. These books will all be in the resource room next door, and there's flyers if people are interested in, so you can have a chance to look at them. Okay, so I want to ask you a question, is what are the 3 most important things you learned in high school? I'm going to tell you one of mine, and there are some youthful people in here that didn't know the first song, but they mouthed it and they faked it with this one, some people are going to say, what is this that he's talking about? So one of the 3 most important things I learned was typing. So I went to a typing class. I remember being very excited, is I was one of the first students in the school who got to use the blue IBM Selectric typewriter, and some of you are going, what is that? You know, in here. And so I'm thankful for that, because I think these days I do keyboarding pretty fast, and I'm thankful for that typing teacher for helping me out with that. You know, when I went to school also, I took a computing class, and there was a room for the students and another room for the computer. Okay? I act youthful, but I'm really old. Okay, so thinking about that is, what are some things that were important to you that you learned in high school? So interestingly enough, if you think about the responses from our audience here, nobody said the algebraic trigonomic formula for interpolation. You know, what we learn is not necessarily what we take with us in life the most, is not necessarily the academic things, but it's those life things. And you know what? We all learn those life things some way. Why do we hold a double standard for somebody with a disability and say they need a special class for that life thing? We all learned them, and you're living proof of that. So we have to support learning those skills at the times that you need to use them. So that's important. What I put is some different we would say partnerships and roles in terms of service delivery who could be involved in a successful transition. So the school and the self-advocate and the family would be important areas. If university and college is a desire, that would be a partner. If there's a developmental disabilities agency involved, which could be a funding source, a vocational rehabilitation agency, they're different in different countries and states and things such as that. This is very important, is that I'm going to promote the idea that we start planning very early on and identifying potential partners. So we're going to have a questionnaire that I recommend that people use in just a couple minutes. Now, when I was a transition teacher, one of the things I did one day is I wrote down a list of all the skills I wish my students would have had, so that we would have a seamless transition, because that last couple of years I actually found myself teaching these particular skills. So here's the list: higher education, vocational, community, domestic, and recreation skills. So talking about what are those important skills that individual needs is higher education and interests and options. So we have made discussions and decisions and things such as that about the morning routine. There were a number of students that I was actually teaching public transportation that weren't able to get up on time, you know, and get it together in the morning. So that's an important thing if you want to be living, working, playing, and being more independent in the community. Time telling. Now, here's my version of time telling, though, is there was a student that I worked with named Mark who couldn't tell time when he was in high school. Does that mean that he can't have any of those opportunities? No, we used a beeper watch, and he had a schedule that actually had the different times and what that meant, and so he was able to follow that just fine and work in the community, use public transportation, have lunch at work, and do recreational types of things. The next one is street crossing and pedestrian safety. We talked about Tim yesterday. Transportation across the day. So think about how you live your life. So maybe you go to the job in the morning. Maybe some people go to the market to pick up food. Some people maybe go to the gym. Think about that we oftentimes, in conjunction with where we work or where we live, we put different types of things as part of our routine? And can we come up with a schedule that represents that? Because what I find happening in schools is there was a student that I worked with, Aaron, and what they would do is in the morning, he would, I actually saw him, I did an observation at his home at 7 o'clock in the morning. His mother, Mary, was very gracious. And he was participating in a breakfast routine and getting ready. And guess what he did at 10 o'clock in the morning when he got to school? He made breakfast again. What is Aaron learning? To breakfast, you've taken out the whole context of the natural times things occur. So I think that's really important too, is looking at when these things naturally occur rather than all these fragmented things that don't make sense in terms of how you piece them together. The next one is initiating the whole daily routine, the rate and the quality of a work routine, protective behaviors and safety, because that's oftentimes one that people say, well, you know what, she can't be in the community because she's going to get taken advantage of. What are we doing to make sure that individual has the education so that doesn't happen? Break and lunch skills and behavior across the day. Accommodations and supports, money and purchasing, restaurant ordering skills, communication. Guess what were the reasons individuals with disabilities were losing their jobs the most? Stealing and sex education issues. Okay, so we need to think about what some of those things are and address that in their education. And if these things had been broached and talked about right before the individual is in their final years of their school career, I think we've got a stronger, more complete, more well-planned type of transition that we're forging ahead. Now, remember that TV show called Cheers? And so, you know, has anybody been to that bar in Boston? So they have the Cheers bar, so there's some hands. You lucky people. Okay, by the way, a couple blocks from where I live, this is another show, but it's, you know, Frasier. That show, John Mahoney, who is his father on that show, lives 2 blocks away from me. So I see him in the neighborhood. So, nice man. I've talked to him before. Okay, so I believe that a center of a person's life is their home. And oftentimes, when they get certain day services, the day custody services that Michael has talked about, is that ceases to happen, is the individual might only have 1 round trip transportation ride a day, and the center of their life becomes the day custody center. And they even sometimes have center in that title, and I don't believe that's the right thing. Is I believe that the center of people's lives here are their home. And so what I want, remembering the Cheers song, is they said it's a place you can go where everybody knows your name. I want that in everybody's life. So I'll give you an example of that. One of my students, this was another Dan, who was just a delightful student, and one of the things when he was transitioning is we talked to Dan and his family, and they wanted him to pick up things from the grocery store after like his school or work day, because he was doing some different things with that. And so what was great is he lived across the street, kind of kitty corner from the store, a couple blocks away, and he got to know people in there. And it was a great thing because, you know, people said hi to Dan by name and things like that. Guess what? One day he forgot his money. And the cashier at the supermarket who knew him said, "Don't worry about it, Dan. I'll probably see you in a day or 2 anyway. Just bring it next time." How many people have forgotten their money somewhere before? So when you think about lots of hands there, isn't that nice to have a place that you can call like another home, kind of like a family place that they greet you by name? And let's talk about the curriculum. So I want to walk you through transition priorities that we had from elementary or primary through high school for one of my students, and this student is Nick. So on this side, what you're going to see is different environments that Nick was involved in, and on this side, what you're going to see is things that were on his IEP that I want to translate to transition skills. So first of all, you're going to see general classes that he was included in. And here are some things that we put on the IP besides the academic things. Respond to questions, directions of the teacher. Increase literacy, work cooperatively with a partner. Let's get the crystal ball in the future. Okay, first of all, let's say that his decision, Nick's decision and family decision is to work in the community. So let's translate this. Respond to questions, directions of the employer. Increase literacy at work, work cooperatively with a coworker. Or he goes to the university, respond to questions, directions from the professor, increase literacy at the university, and work cooperatively with fellow students. Make sense? Okay, so then recreational environments, take turn in games, range of motion exercises, so he had some OT range of motion things, learn steps and rules of the game, dress and participate. Get the crystal ball in the future and think about he could be doing these things at a local gym or some type of recreational activity. So these were identified as those things. The school library or the community library. Read, listen to music, locate materials, set up, engage in activity for 10 minutes. And get the crystal ball in the future. That's a nice place to continue being part of as a library, maybe a community library. And the great thing is you see the partnership between the school and the family here, both involved in promoting some of these skills. School lunchroom, home, eat at an appropriate place, use a napkin, and purchase a drink. I need help on all those. Okay, the next one, school restroom and home restroom, is brush hair, wash hands, pull up pants, things such as that. So we're promoting that. This is a beautiful one. I love classrooms that I go into where students have job responsibilities in the classroom. Here are some that Nick had. Is a messenger, clean his locker, a time reminder, turn on computers, clean, dry erase board, water plants, and feed the classroom pet. Look at these priorities. Initiate activity, complete the entire task, exhibit positive attitude, complete tasks to quality of standards. And you can start very early teaching that work ethic. So isn't that a great thing? So we can relate to life skills and inclusive types of things. And then we talked to Nick and his family. He said, what are some responsibilities at home? And they rose to the occasion so cool with this. They said, yeah, these are important things that we promote this at home too as well. And we said, what would be things that you think are important? And this is what they identified. Make snack, measure, cut, and pour. So learning at an early age how to cut something so it's not so scary later. Making a bed, picking up a room. Community market and restaurant. Now here's something that I like a lot is I think you see these massive grocery stores these days and they're confusing, and if I go to a new one, ADHD comes out, horrible, and I can't find a single thing. So where I start teaching somebody those types of skills is I go to the little convenience stores. And the person is working off a list, whether it's words, pictures, words and pictures, things such as that, to be able to purchase things. And that's a great thing to start with. And you can start that early on, promoting that type of thing. And if you see what we did, so in where I come from, we have elementary, middle, and high school. And so elementary would typically be years 1 through 5, middle would be years 6 through 8, and high would be years 9 through 12. A little bit different, we have that middle thing going on. But you can see what we did is we built on things. So we continued some of the previous things to make sure that they were involved in Nick's schedule, but we had him reviewing his daily schedule, performing a personal exercise routine, increased amount of time with less supervision in doing things in the school and community, eating lunch independently with peers or greater partial participation, looking at all the previous with less supervision, using the internet and more sophisticated things with the computer, building up some of the things that are done at home. Looking at 3-step recipes, dishes, shopping lists, emptying the dishwasher, cleaning up, things like that. Wouldn't you want to marry someone like this, women? Okay, Okay, so community market and restaurant is all of those types of things, so you can keep building on with these things, and what you're doing is you're promoting transition skills throughout the school career while Nick was included the whole time as a member. So communication, so you see all these different things, time telling. So that's something, promoting a schedule throughout the day. Individuals that I've worked with that have autism really love that too, that I've worked with is, I'm like that too, is I really like kind of knowing my schedule. You'll see like under my seat over there is the schedule for the conference. I'm always, on top of it and looking at it. And the mobility in a building, being able to locate things, find things, proceed independently through hallways and things such as that. This is something in my new book, which is called From Possibility to Success. So the first one is From Disability to Possibility. The fifth one is From Possibility to Success. I'm doing lots of formats and processes, planning processes, to help support the person in more independent types of planning and things such as that. So we're talking about things like, where will the person live, what will they do during the day and where will they do it, and what will the person do for fun and recreation. And then I put a little action plan. So I'm working all sorts of different processes in that book too, like the student dream plan. And there's one for if an individual has identified their dream, and there's also one if they have not identified their dream. So one last thing is I put in here, I think, which is a good, it's like a Selfadvocate and family questionnaire. So I think that it's great to start having these discussions with personnel early on. Have educational personnel talked with your child and you about the future? If so, what information was discussed? What does your child or you desire in the next year, 5 years, and 10 years in these areas? Higher education, community, vocational, domestic, recreation. What concerns your child and you the most about the future? What are the plans for your son or daughter when you are gone? That's a tough question to ask, but that's an important thing to think about. And I know there's been resources through Family Advocacy that have looked at estate planning and things like that for the future, et cetera, et cetera. The next one is, are you presently in contact with agencies that will be in contact with your child after graduation? So college, respite and provider agencies, are there any with which you want to make a contact? What information would you like to have regarding adult services in this state? Do you have any preferences for specific agencies to serve your son or daughter? Would you like to visit any agencies? So it's good. Sometimes we can't believe what we don't see, so it's good to take a visit and see things that are happening, providing supports for people. What level of involvement do you wish to have with your child after high school? What would an ideal week look like? The next one, are there any significant people in your child's life that you wish to be involved in the transition process? Relatives, friends, advocates. The next one, where and with whom would you like your child to live? What level of support do you anticipate? What higher education and or work preferences are there after high school? What mode of transportation is preferred after high school? So people with disabilities that I've talked to quite extensively will tell me their biggest albatross is transportation. A couple more. How will finances be handled as an adult? What are recreational preferences? And what social relationships should be maintained? Because once you disperse after high school, that it takes some work to maintain those relationships. So in sum, what we were talking about today is how to create successful transition planning to achieve that really important goal of living, working, playing, being educated in the community with a quality of life. And that is what we really want for everyone. And always keep that in the back of your mind, whether you're advocating right now for somebody that's with your own family, or you're helping to support other people, or you are also a worker doing transition beyond high school. Transitions happen throughout our lives. They can happen when you move into a new job and things such as that. So it's a lifelong issue. And if you're a teacher, initiating some of these types of discussions are really priceless for people.